Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. This is a story of inspiration. We have Damon West here today, and we are so incredibly excited to talk to him. From prison to changing his life to touring the world on parole. We're going to talk about his story today. Damon, I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, and thanks for asking the question, Tiffany. That's what, life is all about that, right? You got to always ask the question. The only question you know the answer to is the one you do not ask. That's no every time. Because you didn't ask the question. So thanks for asking the question.
No, it was interesting. I had a feeling one day to reach out to you and just say, hey, I love your story. I saw you at Champions. And I was like, you know what? His story needs to be heard even more. So I appreciate you responding to me personally. We've talked a few times. But I want to go into your story because the average person that goes into prison goes back to prison almost 90% of the time.
It's called recidivism.
Yeah, and you didn't. So you went into prison, and you talk about on stage how this was the biggest blessing of your life. Most people would say, Damon, that's not a blessing, that's a curse. Right. You went into prison, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you know, it's I think my buddy Ed Milet says this all the time. He says, life doesn't happen to you, life happens for you. And then when you can have a mindset like that, where you see every potential piece, where you see every piece of adversity as a potential opportunity for something better, that's a whole different way of looking at life. You know, your problems all of a sudden become, opportunities. And so that was the mindset that I had to change myself into when I got myself sent to a maximum security prison. And look, I say got myself sent to, I did everything they said I did. I was guilty of everything. I deserved to go to prison. I was a bad guy, but I had a lot of potential. And I think that's what God does. God finds things like that. He finds people that are broken, and he makes them whole again. And that way, he's real. And so this is one of those stories that's like that, because you take a guy like me, I had it all. I had everything growing up, Tiffany. I came from a great family. My mom and my dad were married for 55 years, so I didn't come from a broken home or a split home. I was a good student. I was a great athlete. You're from Texas.
Yeah.
Texas high school football.
And that's competitive.
It's those Friday night lights. It's real. It's like it's intoxicating, especially if you're the man. And I was a 3-year starting quarterback for a 5A school. Back then, 5A was the biggest we had in Texas. And then I got a scholarship to play ball at North Texas, University of North Texas, where you're from in Denton.
Yeah, and that's not easy to do. If anybody knows football, first of all, and then to get D1 scholarship, that's hard.
And then to become the starter for a D1 team at 20. So I'm in a fraternity. I'm partying. I'm the starting quarterback. Life is good, man. But then we're playing against Texas A&M in 1996, and I get hurt. I get injured, and it's the last game I ever play in college. My career's over. I'm 20 years old. It just like it came, it was gone, and I'm at a fork in the road in life. And addiction is going to play a big role in this story. Addicts cannot live life on life's terms. That's what addiction is. When you can't live life on life's terms, you put in chemicals to change the way you feel, because it makes you feel better and makes you forget about the situation you're in. And that's what I did. I started putting in the chemicals once I got hurt. Cocaine, ecstasy, pills, but I was functional as an addict. I graduate college. I move off to Washington, D.C. I work in the United States Congress.
Well, you're an addict. You're working at Congress.
Oh, yeah. I was a very functional addict, though. I'm working in Congress. I'm partying still. I worked for a guy running for president. And then in 2004, I moved back to Dallas to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world, UBS, United Bank of Switzerland. Yeah, I was a broker. And it was at that job as a broker in 2004 that my life and the lives of so many other innocent people are forever going to be changed, because I was asleep at work one day, passed out. This other broker sees me, wakes me up. He's visibly shaken. Damon, wake up. You can't sleep on this job. The markets are open. You're messing with people's money. They'll fire you if they catch you sleeping here. He said, come on down the parking garage. I got something that'll pick you up. So I go down the parking garage that day in 2004, and I take my first hit of meth, smoke it out of a pipe, and I was instantly hooked, just like that. This stuff grabs you. It didn't let go. And I gave everything away for that drug, Tiffany. And that's another thing about addiction. Addicts give up their goals to meet their behaviors. That's the definition of addiction. When you're willing to give up your behavior to meet a goal, you're an addict. And listen, you don't have to be an addict to drugs and alcohol. Food, money, clothing, shopping, sex, pornography, the internet, Instagram. If you give up your goals to meet a behavior, you're an addict. And I was like every addict in history. I gave it all away. My job, home, car, savings account, family, tethering to God. In 18 months, I went from working on Wall Street to living on the streets of Dallas. I'm homeless.
Wow.
I'm living in dope houses. I'm sleeping in park benches and stuff like that, sleeping in people's cars. And I became a criminal at this point. And it was petty crimes at first, breaking into cars, breaking into storage units. Then I started breaking into people's houses. And then I became the quarterback again, only this time of a very bad team. I put together my own burglary crew. These burglaries went on for about 3 years in Dallas. They were called the Uptown Burglaries for the uptown neighborhood of Dallas where they started, where I once lived when I was a stockbroker. And that's where I started preying upon my neighbors and breaking into their houses first. And it spread out throughout most of Dallas. But the name, the Uptown Burglary, stuck, and I was the Uptown Burglar. And, of course, they never knew to have a face with a name until July 30th, 2008, when a Dallas SWAT team took me down in a dramatic SWAT team raid. And so it was in that point of that journey that I'm going on now. You know, I was a bad guy. They took me down, and I'm in Dallas County Jail. My bond is $1.4 million. I can't get out. There's nothing I can do. This trial is happening, and believe me, they want to take me to trial. They've got all the goods on me, and everybody's testified against me. And the trial lasted about 6 days. And at the end of that long 6-day trial for organized crime, this is RICO. This is organized crime. At the end of that long trial, the jury went to deliberate for 10 minutes. I mean, 10
That's
minutes.
fast.
That's fast, man. That means they smoked you. And they brought me back in the courtroom, and they read my sentence out loud. And the judge said, Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. 65 years in Texas is a life sentence. They gave me life that day.
That's like a ton of bricks coming down.
Oh, it was like being punched in the gut, and it was just like it's a lot of reality when when you get sentenced to life in prison. When someone takes your life away from you, literally takes your life away from you. But I'm telling you all that backstory to tell you this: that even though I was sentenced to life in prison, I'm going through one of the most difficult things in life because I was open to all the messengers around me. I was about to receive one of the biggest messages ever that I've ever received in life. When we go through difficult situations, we have to remember, not just difficult situations, when we go through life, we have to be receptive to all the messengers because the messengers can come from anywhere. God can send anybody to get through to you, Tiffany. I mean, they don't have to look like you, the same background as you. But if you get to a place in life where you're just not going to be receptive to somebody because you don't have anything in common with them, you're in a dangerous place because you've gone so far off of where the reality is of where the messages come from. The reality for me of being an ex-con today, and we'll go back to finish the story about after I get sentenced to life in prison. But the reality of being an ex-con today is this, and this is for anybody listening that you have a job in sales, you have a job where you have to get up every day and go after it, right? And I think that's most of us, right? Mm-hmm. And I really, honestly, everybody's in sales. Either you just don't, you might not know it, but you're selling yourself every time you meet somebody. Every relationship you're trying to build, there's a negotiation going on, you know? And I don't mean that in a bad way, but everybody's in sales. But here's the deal. Relationships are everything. And in life, sometimes you're going to sit across from somebody and you want to build a relationship with that person. Sometimes that person sitting across from you, we'll just go with a sales example. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that person sitting across from you has a negative disposition towards salespeople. They have a preset bias that salespeople are all bad. Maybe they got burned by some salespeople before. Maybe they got burned by somebody that's wearing the same logo that you wear on your shirt but doesn't work there anymore, you know? Doesn't matter. You got to build a relationship with that person from a place of less than zero, and you have to do it. There's no excuses. You have to do it. I understand what that's like. I'm an ex-con. You think people were just dying to hang out with an ex-con when I got out of prison? You think people were just like, hey, that's great, come talk to my company? No, because how many ex-cons that have come before me have burned to the ground? Most of them. Most of them, Tiffany. I mean, most people that get out of prison go back to prison. That's just the facts. That's the numbers.
That's why I'm so impressed with your story, because I used to work in the prisons.
Did you really?
In college, I would go visit the prison, interview them. Like, my background is psychology. I think that's why I'm so drawn to your story, because I know the statistics. I know what it's like. Well, I wasn't in prison, but I've seen what their mentality is like, their mental state, the beaten downness. And so that's why when I talk to you, I'm like, How did you get from here to here?
Oh, it's a God thing. Totally a God thing. But I mean, you've got to put in the work too. There's only so much. You've got free will. God's going to do a lot of stuff for you, but God's also wanting you to do your part too. So there's a lot of that going on in this story. But yes, so it's interesting. You worked in prison, so you understand the environment, the mentality, what goes on inside there. It's a very negative place. You ever seen the movie Shawshank?
I've heard of it. I have not seen it.
The Shawshank Redemption. It's one of the best movies ever.
Okay, I'm going to go see it now.
Yeah, you have to go see it, but it's all about hope. And the main character of the movie is this guy named Red, and Morgan Freeman's character. Red has no hope, but there's another character that comes into Shawshank prison. He's an innocent man named Andy Dufresne, and Andy brings hope inside the prison. And a lot of people watch Shawshank and they think the movie is about Andy, and it's not. It's about Red. Because Red has no hope. He needs redeeming. And Andy was the one that helped him find the redemption. And that's what life is about. It's about helping other people find their redemption, find their story, find their path, find their way. That's what so much of my story is about. Because like you hit on the very beginning, if a guy that got sentenced to life in prison, got thrown into a supermax prison, one of the toughest places you can live on the planet, can come out the other side like this, then what's your excuse? Why can't you pick up yourself each day, get out of your bed, put one foot in front of the other? There's a lot of different ways to be in prison, Tiffany. There's the physical prison. I tell people all the time, it's not the hardest prison to get out of. The hardest prison to get out of is the prison in your mind.
The mental, yes. Yes.
I meet more people out here in the free world that are locked up than I ever did when I served time in a real prison, because more people are in prison by their thoughts and by their things than by steel bars and barbed wire and concrete combined. And the prison in your mind, it's the hardest prison to make parole from. Most people don't make parole from the prison in your mind. They stay locked up forever. That's a tough place to be, too.
It's a really tough place to be.
Yeah.
So, like, when you got able to get out of prison, like, how did you transition? Like, how did you go from, okay, I'm coming out of prison? Continue that story, because I know we talked a little bit about it in the car, but I definitely want the viewers to hear it because it was very intriguing to me.
So let me really paint the picture for you. All right, I get out of prison. I'm 40 years old at the time. I get out of prison and I make parole. And there's a lot of area in between we're going to go back and cover. But in 2015, November 16, 2015, that journey of prison lasted 7 years, 3 months, and 18 days.
It's a long time in prison.
Made my first parole. And literally the parole board comes to interview me, and they're like, hey, listen, can you change the world out there the way you changed it in here? Because I was able to change the prison. And we're going to find out about the coffee bean in a little bit, how that happened. But I'm like, yeah, give me a chance. So they let me go. And now I'm on parole till 2073. So when they said 65 years, they meant 65 years. But what you want is to be on the street serving the rest of the sentence, not inside of a prison serving the sentence. So I'm on parole. I walk out of prison, 40 years old. I'm on parole for the rest of my life. You know, I live in my parents' spare bedroom because that's where I lived for the first 2 years I was out of prison. I got a job. I'm making just above minimum wage at this law firm that I'm working at. So 40 years old, out of prison, on parole for the rest of my life. Got a job making just above minimum wage, live in my parents' spare bedroom.
But that's amazing. You got a job, and how many people give felons a job? I mean,
oh, yeah.
Like, that's the hardest thing to come by. So how did you find a job coming out of prison
so,
for a law firm, all that?
Whenever I was in prison, I did my own legal work because here's an axiom. Everybody in prison wants out. Everybody's trying to get out. And the only path I saw out was going to be through the court. So I fought my case. I did my own appeals. And these lawyers in Texas got a hold of my writ that I wrote, my appeal, and got in touch with me and said, hey, listen, you did a hell of a job writing a writ for a guy that's never been to law school. If you ever get out of prison, come see us. We got a job for you. And so second day out of prison, I'm working at one of the most prestigious firms in Texas. Unheard of, right? This is a big door that's opened up. It gives me instant validity for a guy that needs a lot of validity. But, I mean, you think about that for a second. 40 years old, out of prison, on parole for the rest of my life, live in my parents' spare bedroom, making just above minimum wage. I mean, if I would have had a Tinder profile, it would have sucked. Like, which way you swipe on that guy, Tiffany? Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. It was that. But ironically, my wife, who I'm married to today, Kendall Romero met me when I was living in that situation, that very situation. And she met me. She saw something in me that I couldn't even see in myself. You know, she was a nurse practitioner. She's a single mom. She's doing it, man. She is. You ever meet Kendall? She is she's on it. She's She's incredible. So she's living her life. She's doing her best life too. I mean, she's a nurse practitioner, doing great professionally as a mother, everything. And she hooks up with this guy that lives in his parents' spare bedroom. But she sees something in me, and we fall in love. And I always tell people that story because today what you see is totally different. In 2004, 9 years out of prison, you see the big house, you see the incredible life that I've been able to build with Kendall. And some people might not understand that it wasn't always that way. I didn't just arrive here like that. I mean, I had to fight for everything I got in prison, out of prison. But it was really neat. Like when Kendall met me, she had gotten her master's degree, obviously, because she was a nurse practitioner, and you have to have a master's to do that. And this is the kind of a relationship we have. Like I would tell Kendall, like, oh yeah, you know what? I used to want to get my master's degree, and I was thinking about doing it, before I got arrested and all that. And finally one day she's like, listen, if you want to get a master's degree, go get one, but either go get it or shut up. She said, I'm just sick of hearing you talk about doing something. Just go do it. Right?
Oh, I love her.
Yeah. So she was like, yeah. She's like, yeah. So she's like pushing me to be a better version of me.
That's awesome.
But I started going around speaking locally where I lived in Southeast Texas and sharing my story, sharing the coffee bean. And it was hard at first too, because you can't go knock on the door of a high school and say, I just got out of prison, I want to talk to your kids.
Yeah, think about it.
Man, they'll chase you down the street.
You get?
A lot, man. No, and I had to have a cop and a judge that would take me around and escort me in because
that sounds good, right? That looks great.
Yeah, I was an unknown quantity, so they're like, okay, we'll make this about the dangers of the drug, the consequence of bad decisions. That's how my presentation started out. It wasn't about this big motivational thing. It was like, hey, you don't want to make the mistakes that I made. But I would practice my presentation I have now every night for 2 years in this mirror that was in my parents' spare bedroom. My mom had a little vanity mirror in there. It just happened to be there when I moved in. So every night for 2 years, I practiced my presentation in front of that mirror. I'm getting my reps. I'm getting good at what I do. Anything you want to be good at in life, you got to get any reps. You got to practice, right? So I'm getting my reps in, and I'm getting myself ready for the right opportunity. And I believed the right opportunity was going to come from the world of college football. Because I played Division I college football. I can get through to these athletes. But the problem is, it's been 20 years since I took a snap. These players don't know me. I don't know them. These coaches don't know me. I don't know them. January 12, 2017. I've been out of prison for 14 months. A buddy of mine that is in Houston, which is 90 miles from where I live in Beaumont, calls me up that day. He works for the media. He says, hey, Damon, get to Houston right now. The Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award's going on right now. The 8 best coaches in America are in this room. I've got an extra press pass. I'll sneak you in. So he sneaks me in. I drive the 90 miles from Beaumont to Houston. He sneaks me in the back door, hands me a press pass. There I am. And I'm in Tiffany. All these USC, Wisconsin, Penn State, PJ Fleck, they're all in this room. And I'm running up to these coaches. I'm shaking their hands. And I'm giving my pitch. Why you should bring me in to talk to your team. Yeah. And every coach I meet that night slammed the door in my face. They all said no. In 1 hour, I got 7 no's from the 8 coaches in the room. That's a no every 8 minutes. Man, I'm in the corner of the Toyota Center. I am licking my wounds. I'm feeling sorry for myself. And the voice in my head is telling me, go home. Like, what are you doing here? Why did you do this to yourself? You don't even belong in this room. The voice in my head called me an imposter. And I think everybody knows that imposter voice, man.
They do.
But I'm going to tell you what I quit doing a long time ago, listening to myself. And if you're listening to this right now, you shouldn't listen to yourself either. Because the voice in your head can be fear talking to you. And you don't want to listen to fear because fear is a liar. So instead of listening to myself, you know what I do? I talk to myself. I've been doing it all my life. So I'm in the corner that night, and I'm telling myself, Damon, you're not going anywhere. That last coach is going to tell you no to your face before you leave. And Tiffany, the last coach, is the hardest guy to get to in the room. His team had just beat Alabama 2 nights before for the national championship. Everybody's trying to get a piece of this guy's time. But I'm not leaving until he tells me no, and I'm relentless. I think you know enough about me now. You know I'm relentless.
I love it.
So I stalked Dabo Swinney around that room. Dabo Swinney, the head coach at Clemson. And I look like a crazy person. I'm hiding behind fake plants and stuff. I'm trying to ambush this guy, and I'm weaving in and out of people. And so finally I get in front of Dabo. I give him my best stuff for like 60 seconds, and I come up for air. And Dabo's like, man, he's freaked out a little bit. He's like, you got a card on you, man? Yeah. So I gave him my card. He took it from me, and he says, I'll check you out. And he is gone. And I'm like, well, that's a no. But you know what I felt good about that night? Mm-hmm. That no. Because that no meant that I left it all on the field. And that was one of the lessons I learned from playing sports. That's why I think sports are so important in life, because you learn these life lessons. Mm-hmm. Leave it all on the field. Give it your best effort. Sometimes you're going to come up short. Or the guy that I meet in Dallas County Jail named Muhammad, he told me this before I went to prison. He said, you don't have to win all your fights. but you do have to fight all your fights. He said some days you're going to win, some days you're going to lose. That
you
night,
lose every fight you don't take.
Yeah, absolutely. It's already a loss. So that night I went 0 for 8, and I went home and I slept like a baby because I left it all on the field. I forgot about that night. 4 months later, I'm at work at the law firm, and I get an email that day, and it's from the director of football operations at Clemson University, a guy named Mike Dooley. Mike Dooley's email said this, Tiffany. He said, "Hey, Damon, Coach Sweeney made you the award show in Houston. He'd love to have you come talk to his team. Do you have August 1st open?" I got every first open, man. I got nothing going on in my, in 2017, I'm not going anywhere and do anything. So August 1st, 2017, I go speak to the Clemson Tigers, the defending national champions of college football. And man, after that presentation is over, Dabo Swinney is in my face. Dabo's a high energy guy. He's like, "Oh my God." He said, "I've never seen my players respond like that to a speaker." He said, "Have you been to Alabama yet to talk to their football team?" And I'm like, "No, Dabo. I've been to Clemson." He said, "Well, we'll see what happens." He said, "I just text Nick Saban from the back of the room. We'll see what happens with that." The next morning, I'm flying back into Houston. I turn my phone on. There's a voicemail and a text message from the director of football operations at Clemson at University of Alabama, the Whale, the biggest program in America. The message says this: "Hey, Damon, Dabo called Coach Saban last night. Coach Saban can't wait to hear your story. How does August 21st, 7:30 p.m. work for your calendar?"
Looks great.
Pretty good. I'll be there. Like, I could walk to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but so just like that, Dabo Swinney kicks open the biggest door to college football. And Dabo doesn't stop there. I mean, Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley, Chip Kelly, Lane Kiffin, Ryan Day, every coach in America is calling me up, come talk to my team. But the real magic hadn't even happened yet. It was August of 2018. I was working at the law firm that day, and my cell phone rings. And on the other end of my cell phone is a guy named Jon Gordon. Now, Jon Gordon is one of the biggest motivational speakers and authors in America. This is the energy bus guy. This is the guy that I follow on Twitter every day for my inspiration, and he's on my phone. And I'm like, "Dude, Jon, I know who you are. How do you know who I am?" He said, "Dabo Swinney." He said, "I just got done speaking to Clemson's football team, Damon. Dabo brought me in the office for 30 minutes to tell me your entire life story." And Jon said this before the pandemic, Tiffany. He said, "Damon, the world needs a Coffee Bean message, Damon. Let's deliver this message to the world." He said, "Will you write a book with me? We'll call it The Coffee Bean." The summer of 2019, exactly 10 years after I first heard that story of the coffee bean, which we're going to talk about in a second, I first heard that story of a coffee bean from a guy named Muhammad in a jail cell in Dallas County. The book, The Coffee Bean, comes out, took the world by storm. And it started out in America first. It was like 4 to 6 weeks on the bestseller list here. Gets a global publishing deal attached to it. Global publishing deals, Tiffany, that's where they start reprinting your book in every language in the world. It's popping up in Chinese and Spanish and Arabic, French, Italian, German, Vietnamese, Korean. And then in the year 2020, remember what happened in 2020?
Yeah, just a little bit.
The global pandemic hits. The entire world becomes a pot of boiling water, and the entire world is searching for the right message to get them through to it. And so many people landed on me.
Which is a perfect message. I love your message. I listened to it. I'm going to let you say it, but oh my goodness. It's so needed because it's true.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, you got 3 choices. So here's the coffee bean message. And well, let me finish the story real quick, then we'll get to the coffee message. So my life goes from this to this. And for the people that are just listening, it goes from like this horizontal plane to just this vertical jump. I mean, like, now I'm speaking all over the world. I'm writing more books. They're becoming bestsellers. Things are starting to happen. But it all goes back to that one night in Houston, Texas, January 12th, 2017, that night that I had those 7 no's, and I'm in the corner. And the voice in my head told me to leave. Tiffany, if I listened to the voice in my head that night, and I was this close, and I'm holding my fingers up about an inch apart for everybody that's just listening, I was this close to walking out the door because Dabo seemed impossible to get to. Not just impossible to get to, but when I get to him, what's he going to tell me? Everybody else told me no, and they didn't win the national championship. This guy's for sure is going to tell me no. If I walk out that door that night and I don't talk to Dabo Swinney and ask him my question, we're not having this conversation today, and the world doesn't have the coffee bean message. So what I tell people all the time is that you don't give up. You don't quit in life. You don't not ask your question. The only question you know the answer to is the one you don't ask. That's a no every time because you didn't ask it, Or Wayne Gretzky, he may have said it best. He said, you miss 100% of the shots you do not take. You got to go take your shots in this life. You got to go out and put yourself out there. You got to risk the loss to get to the wins, right?
You do.
So the coffee bean message. So right after I get sentenced to life in prison, We're bouncing around here, so I hope you're following.
No, I love it
Yeah.
because I told my kids the coffee bean. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. I told my kids the coffee beans as soon as I saw you. I'm like, oh, you need to understand this is so true. I've never heard it said like this, but it's like so important for people to hear. So go ahead and say, I'm going to let you tell it, but I love it.
No, it's great. So right after I get sentenced to life in prison, we're back at May 18th, 2009, the day I got sentenced to life in prison. The judge reads the sentence out loud, and immediately they get me out of the courtroom. You know, they put me in this little side room. It's got a bulletproof glass. They told me to wait. A few minutes later, my mom and my dad are escorted in on the other side of the glass. They're giving my parents one last visit with me before I go to prison. They feel sorry for my parents. I just got life, you know. And my dad can't even talk. He is in stunned disbelief that his son, who once had all this promise in life, just received a life sentence in prison. So my mom does all the talking. Moms are special, Tiffany. They're tough, man. They're made of something different than dads are. But my mom says, hey, Damon, she said, debts in life demand to be paid. And you just got hit with one hell of a bill from the state of Texas. She said, but you did everything you said you did. So you're going to have to go and pay that debt to society. She said, you owe Texas that debt. But now you owe your father and I debt too. We gave you all the opportunity to love and support to be anything you want to be in life. And they did, Tiffany. They gave me everything. I had everything going for me in life. She said, we raised you in Port Arthur, Texas, a giant melting pot of a city. We gave you a great moral compass, but you chose to not use it. So here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get in one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type of gangs, because you're scared, because you're the minority in there. She said, it's not going to work. You were never raised to be a racist. You're not starting that stuff now. She said, you will not get any tattoos while you're inside that prison. You see any ink on me?
No.
None. Wow. But my mom told me that day, she said, no gangs, no tattoos. You come back as the man that we raised, or don't come back at all. And I was like stunned.
Talk about profound.
Profound, like in the moment, like stepping up in the moment. Like, and I've asked my mom since then, like, where did that come from? She said, the Holy Spirit. And I was like, okay. So, but my mom told me, she said, do you understand the debt you're going to pay to us? And I was like, yeah, I got it. But I didn't know what I just promised him, because, I mean, I don't know anything about prison. I've never been to prison before. I'm a white middle-class guy in America. I don't know why it's been in prison at this point in my whole life, right? So I get back to my pod in Dallas County Jail. I got 2 months before the prison bus comes to get me, and I'm frantically asking every guy that's been in prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And every guy I'm talking to, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they're all saying the same thing. You have to get into a gang. You cannot survive without a gang. They said the gang will be your family now. But there was this one guy that was so different, Tiffany, this older black man named Muhammad. Muhammad's what you call a career criminal. He's been in and out of prison his entire life. But he's the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. He had a smile on his face everywhere he went. You couldn't knock the smile from Muhammad's face. And every morning, he'd come to my cell, he'd come to my bunk, and he would pick me up like a ray of sunshine in a dark place with this positive energy. So one morning, Muhammad, he comes up to my bunk. He's got a cup of coffee in his hands. He's got a smile on his face. He said, West, I've been watching you. I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and these dummies talking about you got to get into a gang. He said, don't listen to these fools. He said, you want to keep the promise you made to your mom and your dad? Let me tell you what prison's really going to be like. And that's when he told me everything about prison. He said, the first thing you need to understand about this place called prison is all about race. Race runs everything in there. The inmates want it that way. He said, when you go into a supermax prison, you're expected to break off with your own racial group, and you stay with that group the whole time you're there. Don't mix the races in there. He says, what I'm telling you is the white gangs get the first dibs on you because you're white. The Aryan Brotherhood, the Aryan Circle, the White Knights, the Woods, you said you fight all those guys first. If you survive that, now you're fighting black gangs. And the white gangs send the black gangs after you. And the black gangs, the Crips, the Bloods, the Gangster Disciples, they're happy to tee off on you, this independent white guy who won't get with his own race and his own kind. He said, but if you survive all that, and you can survive all that, you will earn the right to walk alone. He said the strongest man in prison always walks alone. That's what he told me. He said, you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. Some days you win, some days you lose. He said, it doesn't matter about the losses, just get up. And that's what he's telling me. He's like, get up. But Tiffany, when he's telling me this back in 2009, I'm looking back at this guy like a deer in headlights. All this violence and terror I'm about to walk into. That's when he's like, West, let me break it down for you a different way. He said, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. He said, anything we put in this pot of boiling water is going to be changed by the heat and the pressure inside this pot. He said, I'm going to put 3 things in this pot of boiling water and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So here's where I first heard the story of the coffee bean, right? It's the summer of 2009 in a jail cell in Dallas County Jail, exactly 10 years before Jon and I wrote that book in 2019. So he said, first things first, West, if I put a carrot in that pot of boiling water, he said, what happened to the carrot? And I went, Muhammad, the carrot's going to turn soft. He said, that's right. He said, but the carrot went in the water hard and firm, but the water of the prison turned the hard carrot soft and mushy and weak. He said, you don't want to be the carrot. He said, what about the egg? What happens to the egg in the pot of boiling water? I'm like, man, the egg is going to turn hard, like a hard-boiled egg. He said, that's right, Wes. He said, the egg is a shell that will protect it physically, but inside that shell, that soft liquid core, that yolk, that heart becomes hardened. He said, now, if your heart becomes hardened, you become incapable of giving or receiving love. He said, if you're incapable of giving or receiving love in the world you're going into, you don't come back as someone your parents recognize. You've become institutionalized, and your eggshell will have swastikas all over it. Then he asked me the question. He said, what about the coffee bean, West? What happened to the coffee bean in the pot of boiling water? And Tiffany, I didn't have an answer for him on that one. I didn't know what happened to a coffee bean in a pot of boiling water. And that is when Muhammad, this guy who looks nothing like me, this guy who doesn't come from the same America that I came from, this guy who doesn't believe the same things I believe in life. This is a black Muslim man from the streets of Dallas, Texas. I'm this white middle-class Christian from a little town called Port Arthur. But this man who is so different than me, he's going to share with me one of the most important and transformational messages I've ever received in life. And this is what I was talking about a while ago. If you ever shut yourself off to people because of their differences, different race, gender, ethnicity, religion, opinions, political views, if you close yourself off to people because of their differences, you miss some of the most important lessons and some of the best friendships.
So true.
Because Muhammad told me that day, he said, if I put a coffee bean in that same pot of boiling water we call prison, he said, now you got to change the name of that water to coffee. Because he said the coffee bean, West, the smallest of the three things, small like you, had the power to change the entire atmosphere inside that pot because the power was inside the coffee bean. He said, just like the power is inside you. He told me, he said, everything else in life is changed by the water in life. Carrots are changed by the water. Eggs are changed by the water, but not a coffee bean. He said the coffee bean is the only thing that changes the water because it's the change agent. He told me, he said, if you want to come back as someone your parents recognize, you got to be like that coffee bean. In fact, the last words he ever says to me, it's the summer of 2009, Tiffany. He's bonding out of Dallas County Jail. Pretty soon the prison bus is getting ready to come pick me up to serve my life sentence in prison. He has 4 words for me on the way at the door that day. He said, hey, West, be a coffee bean. Be a coffee bean. Those 4 words changed my life because you know what those 4 words did for me? Put the power back inside me. That's what we talked about in the car. Now, if the power's inside me, it can't be in the world around me. It can only be in one place, right? If the power's inside me, it's not in the hands of the criminal justice system, the guards, the other inmates. It's in me. I'm not a victim. I've got the power now. And I knew if I could keep the power inside me, I wouldn't just survive prison. I could thrive inside that prison. And I tell people this story because I want them to know the power's inside them too. It's not what goes on in the world around you, the state you live in, the crazy politics and social problems this country has right now. And it definitely doesn't come from that world they call social media, the fakest world there is. The power's inside you. And if you can keep the power inside you, you don't survive your adversity. You thrive in your adversity, Tiffany.
That such a powerful story.
It's wild.
But it had to have been scary when he was telling that story because he's pretty much telling you just go get beat up. Pretty much. Yeah. Did you?
And that happened a lot.
A lot?
The first 2 months I was in prison. So the first day I walk in, I'm in a fight with a guy from the Aryan Brotherhood. This guy beats me from one side of the table to the other. But I had to show up, and I fought, and I lost. The first 2 months of prison, I probably got in 3 dozen fights, and I lost 75% of my fights, Tiffany. I got my butt kicked all over that prison. But I won all 3 dozen of those fights because I showed up to the fight. And that's the thing about life. No one counts your wins and losses, Tiffany. No one, you keep track of that. No one keeps track of that. No one even knows about your number of wins and losses. But everybody does watch to see, does he or she get back up when the adversity hits? And that's the victory in life, just getting back up. And some days it's just getting out of your bed, putting one foot in front of the other. That's the victory. That's a win. Run with that. Celebrate the wins, the little wins.
It's so important to get back up. You talk about how sports are so important for kids. I agree, because what it does, it teaches you. I remember multiple times running sprints, wanting to throw up, not wanting to get back up, but you have to get back up. And it teaches you, no matter what's going on in your life, just get back up.
Right.
Because there's going to be hard times. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to, make a wrong choice, but get back up and continue on.
That's right.
But how, this is a question that just came to my mind, but how did you change your mindset? Because you went through a lot of dark times. You had to have.
Good question. So here's what happened with that. Again, the messengers in life can come from anywhere. So after all the fighting's done, the first couple months of prison was spent fighting. And then there was one big fight I had to get into. This guy was going to try to rape me in the shower. But my cellmate, Carlos, he gave me the drop. He gave me he told me what was going to happen. He gave me a weapon. I fought the guy off. And that was the last fight I had to fight in prison. So 2 months, the violence is finally over. The threat to my physical safety is gone. But I've got a bigger problem on my hands 2 months into prison. And it's not a physical problem. It's internal. I'm becoming the egg. My heart's becoming hard. It's spiritual warfare. You ever dealt with spiritual warfare?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's the battle for your soul between good and evil. And I'm losing, man. I'm losing this fight. And I don't want to be the egg. Remember, the egg can't go home to mom and dad, but I don't know how to be a coffee bean. One of the last conversations I had with Muhammad in county jail, I asked him, I said, what will I find more of when I get to prison? He said, you're going to find more eggs, because the egg is a natural evolution of any human being in any difficult situation. He said, most people will become eggs before they can become anybody else. He said, you're about to walk in one of the most difficult situations there is on earth. He said, the truth is, you'll probably become an egg too. And man, he was right. He was right about everything. So it was this conversation I was having with Carlos. Carlos is about 5'4", a little Hispanic guy, a little bank robber from San Antonio. He was serving 99 years for a bunch of bank jobs. Super nice guy, though. Real nice guy. And I get it. But listen, when you live with the lifers, you got to change your mind real quick about 100%. Who good guys and bad guys are. Yeah. Man. You got to figure it out, because you got to make friends somewhere.
It's more about the mindset, and it's more about the personality. 100%.
So man, Carlos he's a good guy. He's a bad bank robber, but a good guy, right? So, but it's one night, we're in our cell. It's a little 10 by 12 cell, just like you see in the movies. Got a bunk bed, got a desk, got a metal toilet. And I'm laying in my bottom bunk. He's in the top bunk, and it's lights out. So everybody's got to be in their bunk. Got to be quiet while the guards are counting. They count all the inmates. And I'm whispering to him, hey, Carlos, man, I'm struggling. I don't know how to be a coffee bean. And he's like, what's a coffee bean? So I told Carlos the story of the coffee bean, just like Muhammad told it to me. And man, Carlos comes flying down the top. He's a real animated little dude. Yeah, I still talk to him all the time on the phone. He's going to be in prison a long time, but he's real animated. He said, oh my God, man. He said, I love the story of the coffee bean. He said, but you're no coffee bean, and you'll never be a coffee bean. Tiffany, I got out of my bunk and I got in his face. I'm ready to fight Carlos. I'm like, what do you mean I can't be a coffee bean? Who are you, the coffee bean man? Like, what gives you the right? And he laughed at me. He said, because the way you think. He said, your thinking is your problem. He said, your thoughts control everything. He said, your problem is, Damon, you think prison is a punishment when you should be thinking prison is your opportunity.
Wow. Talk about profound.
Yeah, it took me back. I'm like, what do you mean? I said, I can't wrap my brain around that. He said, this is your opportunity, Damon. You can work on yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You could become the best version of yourself possible and through here. And it lights out that night when the guard gets done counting our cell. He peeks his head down from the top bunk. He said, psst, West, what are you prepared to do tomorrow with your opportunity? This little dude refused to call prison a punishment, and God put him in a cell with me. Proof that in life, the messenger can come from anywhere. Black Muslim man in county jail, Hispanic bank robber serving life in my cell, this former incarcerated man from Texas on parole for the rest of his life sitting across from you. God can use any messenger to get through to you, but you have to be receptive to all the messengers to get all the messages. You can't be judgmental about things. I learned a lot about judgment from Mr. Rogers. You ever watch Mr. Rogers?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Love Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers told a story. Before he was Mr. Rogers, he was a Presbyterian minister in Pittsburgh. And he said he went to a church service one Sunday, and there was a substitute preacher in town. So he sits to the substitute preacher's sermon. And at the end of that man's sermon, Mr. Rogers thought to himself, that's the worst sermon I've ever heard. He said this was the absolute worst preacher he'd ever seen. Half the congregation fell asleep on this guy. Just as Mr. Rogers is about to turn to the little old lady sitting next to him, because he's going to tell her how bad the guy was, he's going to talk bad about him, he stops. He bites his tongue because the little old lady sitting next to him is bawling and crying. She's in tears. She's shaking. And she said to Mr. Rogers, "That's the most beautiful sermon I've ever heard." She said, "It was the absolute right thing. I need to hear it at the absolute right time in my life." And she said, "I'll never forget where I was this day that I heard this sermon." Mr. Rogers is floored because clearly the rest of the congregation, including himself, does not agree with this woman. But he couldn't deny what he saw. And what he saw is that man profoundly impacted this woman's life. But he learned a very important lesson that day. He learned that while he was coming in judgment, that little old lady was coming in need. In need.
I love that because when you come in judgment, you're not open to hear.
No, you can't hear anything.
When you come in humility and you come in that you can learn from anybody.
That's right.
Then the doors open.
That's right.
And
you're listening.
there is no limits to what you can create.
You talked to me earlier about, and it's nice of you to say that, just about, you're like, hey, you're got a lot of humility. And like, think about where I've been, though. You hear more of the story, you're like, wow, if this guy doesn't live in humility, he misses all these messengers. He misses. If I didn't find out a way how to be humble and live in humility, I'd still be in prison, you know? I'd be in a lot of different prisons at this point. But humility is so important. You hit the nail on the head. Humility is when we are right-sized. And when we're right-sized, we can be useful to other people again. It's so important to be humble and be open to other people. Because that conversation with Carlos that night, the next day, my life changed forever. I woke up that morning, the next morning, my feet hit the cold concrete floor of the prison cell, and I look up at the ceiling. I'm like, all right, God, thanks for this opportunity. And I changed the way I saw prison around me. I no longer looked at prison as a punishment. I looked at prison as an opportunity, and I started working on myself. I started getting up and putting in the work. And that's what's incumbent upon everybody, put in the work. No one can put in your work for you. You know, take action. No one is going to take your action for you. You know this. You're a business owner. No one's going to come wake you up. No one's going to come save you. There's no cavalry coming for you because you are the cavalry. And once I figured out that I was the cavalry and I was the only one that's going to change this, my life took off. I mean, you know, it didn't happen overnight. There's other things that had to happen. I had to get a better understanding about life. I had to work a program recovery. I got into a 12-step program recovery in prison, learned how to pray. I got this prayer that I pray every morning that puts me on the right path. I say, hey, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you, and let me recognize it when I see it. That's it. That's my prayer. That's what I pray for, because then I can be useful again. I
love that prayer. What's interesting is I haven't been in prison, but every morning I wake up and I want to do something really hard.
You get up at 4 a.m. I look at your stories.
I do. 4 or 5, depending on the day. But I go.
What time do you go to bed? If you get up at 4 or 5, what time do you go to bed?
Well, last night I didn't sleep. So last night was probably 1 a.m. But usually I really try to get in by 10 because I get up so early. And sleep, I do feel, is very important. But every morning I try to do something really hard. Work out. Like I try to push my body. And then I get into a cold plunge. And I do that because it shows me I can do anything. If I can go through the suck and physical thing, I can do anything mentally. And so I think that's what's really important, is to show ourselves that we can do anything. And like we talked about sports, it's just about getting back up. Like being the coffee bean on a daily basis and being humble and impacting the lives and the relationships that you can create. The reason why I wanted you on the podcast is because literally your story is the road less traveled. You don't find someone that turned their life around 180. 90% of people end up back in prison.
Sure.
And instead, you decided to be a coffee bean and change the world. And it's shown because I've seen you speak, and your message is getting out there in a way that is so important for people to see. Because you can become a carrot, you can become an egg, and so many people become an egg. Even in one of my fields, which is property management, a lot of people become eggs because of the hardness of the interactions sometimes. And I'm like, no, be a coffee bean. Change the lives of the people around us.
Well, and you can be all three. I mean, you could have bad days. You're entitled to have that. You're gonna be the carrot sometimes. That's being sad. That's a natural human emotion. You were born with that. It's okay to be sad sometimes. You can be the egg sometimes, because being an egg is being mad. Also a natural human emotion. God gave you those emotions. You're going to feel those things. Pain demands to be felt. Mm-hmm. Go feel your pain, but don't get stuck in the pain, because you do have the third choice to be like that coffee bean. The coffee bean that changes the water to coffee. It's so important for people to remember that too, because life is all about choices, and you are given free will. Remember, no one's going to come save you from this thing. You've got to get up and start taking action every single day. And yeah, you get it. I mean, that's why you want to be on the show, because you take action every day. I watch you on your story. You're up at 4 a.m. working out. You and your husband are working out at 4 a.m. You know, I get up at 5 and I think I'm doing something great. You're up at 4, so it's like incredible.
You travel around the world. I mean, it's finding it. What you said right there is very important. I know we have to close pretty soon, but making the decision, not going after what we feel like we want to do, but making the hard decisions. Usually, the right and the hard are the one you need to make, right?
Yeah.
And getting up and pushing ourselves to become better on a daily basis. You know, it is important to feel, but making the hard decisions and being disciplined and creating a life. We create the life. It's not created for us. We can create it with the help of God and everything. You know, there's no limits.
That's
and,
right.
You know, I think that's why I think we had amazing conversations in the car and everything, and you're creating something, and you're going to speak to someone tonight.
Yeah, I got a healthcare company that I'm going to speak to tonight. They got a dinner that I get to attend.
Yeah.
I got to.
Yeah.
Get to mindset. That's the trick.
I get to.
So I get to attend this dinner tonight, and then tomorrow morning I get to address the whole group that's going to be here in Arizona for their conference, and it's amazing. I can't believe this is my life. But part of it is, and we talked about this in the car, is you have to give it away to keep it. You got to find ways to put back into life. What I tell people all the time. Do we have more time? Can I keep talking?
Yeah, we do.
Okay,
but
cool.
I know you have to.
Yeah, no, we'll be good.
Okay. I want to be respectful.
I tell everybody in life, find a quote that moves you. Find a favorite quote. And when you find out what that quote is, man, you stick it on the Post-it note on the mirror. It's on your phone. It's places where you see it every day. Memorize this quote. My favorite quote came to me from a book I read in prison from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. called The Strength to Love. And The Strength to Love was just a bunch of sermons that Dr. King wrote. But in one of his sermons, the sermon was called The Death of Evil Upon the Seashore. That was the name of the sermon. And in the sermon, Dr. King is talking about a guy named Charles A. Beard. Now, Charles A. Beard was probably the most famous historian of the 20th century, one of the most brilliant historians that's ever lived on the planet, right? This guy could tell you names and dates and places of everything that's ever happened in the history of the world. So in the middle of the 20th century, someone goes up to Charles A. Beard and says, "Hey, Dr. Beard, what lessons has history taught you?" His answer became my favorite quote. Now remember, this is the most brilliant historian ever. Here's what his answer was. He said, "There are 4 lessons history has taught me. First, whom the gods would destroy, they must first make mad with power. Second, the mills of God grind slowly, yet they grind exceedingly small. Third, the bee fertilizes the flower that it robs. And fourth, when it is dark enough, you can see the stars."
Wow.
So this guy could have given you names and dates and places of time because he knows them all. But what he gave you is this. First, whom the gods would destroy, they must first make mad with power. History is littered with tyrants, people that are obsessed with power. And the obsession for the power, the quest for the power destroyed them because you can't go after the power like that. The power's got to be something natural that happens. You can't lust for power. Second, the mills of God grind slowly, yet they grind exceedingly small. Life is a long time to live, made of a lot of little bitty moments. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Life goes on for a long time. God has all these little bitty moments, man. That's his mill. It grinds slowly and small over time. You can't be in too much of a hurry. You'll miss it. Third, the bee fertilizes the flower that it robs. This is servant leadership. Servant leadership is helping other people reach their goals in life, helping to raise other people up. Even nature abhors someone that holds everything to themselves. The bee pollinates the flowers that it steals the pollen from. If nature abhors a thief and abhors someone that is greedy with stuff, what do you think it's going to do to you if you are that person? You've got to give it away to keep it. And fourth, when it's dark enough, you can see the stars. That's life. When you're at your darkest moment, when things don't look like they can get any better, everything's worse, everything's going downhill, you're miserable, you're lost hope, that's the chance that you have to shine your brightest because you're up against the wall and it's dark, but it's darkest just before dawn, Tiffany. It was an incredible quote.
Oh, I love that. When your back's up against the wall, you get to decide what kind of person you want to be.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has that moment in life. You get to decide to get back up and keep pushing on and become what you need to become. To
get bitter or
impact the
get
world.
better. Yeah.
I like that saying, get bitter, get better. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal it.
It's not mine. I don't know who I heard. Jon Gordon has said it to me a million times. Get bitter or get better.
That's the truth.
So much about life, Tiffany, is living with integrity. Now, integrity, that's who you are when no one but God is watching you. Integrity is those little moments that you're by yourself and you've got a choice. Do I do the right thing or do the wrong thing? Kind of like your back against the wall. You got choices, Mm-hmm. So many people ask me this question all the time. Where is Muhammad now? Everybody wants to know what happened to Muhammad, right? It's the most frequent question I ever get. This is the integrity story. So when I got out of prison, I was on a quest to find Muhammad, But Muhammad's not his real name. It's his Muslim name. When a person converts to Islam, they get rid of their real name, take on a Muslim name, kind of like Cassius Clay did in the 1960s, Muhammad Ali. So this Muhammad was no different. I go back to Dallas County Jail when I got out of prison. Instead of trying to find my friend Muhammad, Dallas County Jail was super nice about it, but they're like, we can't find your friend in a Muslim name. We need a real name or birthday. We need vital information. So I had to hope that one day he found me, and here's how he finally found me. So 2 years ago, I get a letter from an inmate in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. I get a lot of inmate mail, Tiffany. Men and women all over.
I bet you do.
All over the American prison system. They write me letters all the time because I am hope to every man and woman in prison. And that's why it's so important for me every month to go into a prison somewhere in America and just volunteer in there and let these men and women who are incarcerated touch their dream, because I am their dream. I'm the dream. Like if Damon can do it, I can do it, But you got to see your dream to think your dream is real. But this letter that I got had no return address, had one sentence. The one sentence, find James Lynn Baker and you find Muhammad. Boom.
Wow.
7 years I've been waiting for this clue. So I go to Dallas. I go to Dallas. I get with my lawyer. We get a private investigator. The first thing the PI finds is James Lynn Baker's criminal record. Matched everything he said. In and out of prison his entire life. Had him in county jail when I was there in 2009 for a parole violation. So this is my buddy. I know it's him. All we got to do now is find his current address, but we never found his current address because James Lynn Baker II, Muhammad, he died in Dallas, Texas of an opiate overdose on May 9th, 2017. Tiffany, he was a drug addict just like me, but he never made it to a program recovery. He died in his addiction. Wow. So now that I know who the guy is, I'm faced with a choice. What do I do now? I think we can all agree that I'm not here today without him. None of this stuff has happened in my life if I didn't have the coffee messages. The book, the coffee bean, the success I've had in life, none of that happens if I don't have his message. So the right thing to do, the living with integrity thing to do, is to go out and find his family so I can honor him properly. So I found his family. He comes from a dynamic family. He's got a little sister that she's in her 70s now. Her name is Vonseal Baker, first Dallas Cowboy cheerleader ever, first woman to ever wear that uniform, 1972. His mother was the first woman to open a black daycare, a licensed black daycare in Dallas history, 1948. So he came from an incredible family with a great background. He has 3 living sisters, Visha, Vonseal, and Vanessa. Call him up one night. I told the ladies about the time I met their brother in county jail, the message he gave me, and what I was able to do that message both in prison and out of prison. And I told his sisters, I said, I don't know what your feelings are about your brother and the choices he made in life, but let me tell you something I know about your brother. Your brother impacted at least one person while he was on this planet, me. And I'll impact the entire planet with the message he gave me. And I asked his sisters, I said, what high school did y'all go to growing up? When James and I were locked up together, he told me little pieces about his life. He told me he's from the poorest, most inner city, most rundown part of Dallas. And the sisters confirmed all that when they told me the high school, Dallas Lincoln High School.
Oh my goodness.
That's South Dallas, girl.
Yes. I know Lincoln High School.
That's as inner city as you get in Dallas. That is South Dallas, man. And I said, great. So here's what we're going to do, Dallas Lincoln. Every year for the rest of my life, I'm going to put $10,000 into a trust for a scholarship in your brother's name. We're going to call this thing the James Lynn Baker II Be a Coffee Bean Scholarship. And I would love for your family to pick that winner every year. So that every year, one little boy or one little girl that grows up in his old neighborhood, they get a better chance at life through an education because these 2 guys met up in county jail back in 2009. Tiffany, the sisters, took me up on it. 2 years now, we've picked 2 winners. One of the winners, this little girl named Megan. Megan's mother's a school teacher. Her dad, a disabled veteran. Right now, Megan, she's sitting in class at Texas A&M. Megan's going to be an engineer one day. Finally found Muhammad. It took 7 years to find my friend. It took 7 no's that night in Houston, Texas to get to the one yes I need in life. It took 7 no's that night to finally turn to yeses too. The other night I spoke to Penn State's football team, right? Penn State, Coach James Franklin. He was the last coach of all those 7 no's 7 years ago that told me no that became a yes. It took me 7 years to track down all of those coaches and flip them from no's to yes. And every year I'd call them up. Is this the year? Is this the year? Last week, I talked to the last coach, flipped the last no to a yes.
Congrats.
7 years. Yeah. 7. These numbers keep occurring in my life. Some of your goals in life are going to take you longer than others. Don't quit. Don't give up before the miracle happens.
You weren't willing to take the no for an answer.
Even the guys,
yes.
even the guys that told me no 7 years ago.
But real quick, right back. Think about the greatest gift you could give a family, to tell them that their son that was in prison impacted your life. Not only that, now his legacy is impacting lives with yours.
You are the first person that's ever interviewed me that picked up on that. Usually I'm telling people that part of the story. It's kind of creepy that you actually picked up on that. It's wild. Not creepy in a bad way, but wild. Here's something deep that I learned about the coffee bean. All right. This is as philosophically deep as I can get. I met James Baker in county jail, Muhammad, in 2009. He was there to help guide me. One of the first questions I had for his sisters when I met him is, was he raised around white people? And they were like, well, why would you ask that? I said, well, because in a world where race is everything, he didn't see that. He saw a person in need. And he's older, I'm younger. He's white, I'm black. He's Muslim, I'm Christian. None of that mattered to him. He saw a person in need. And they said, yeah, he was actually. Their church they went to, whenever he was 9, when James was 9, they had a new pastor come in. They're all black church. He was a white guy, brought his white family. Other white families started coming to join their church. And so he was raised around white people through his faith. And so God was working on him when he was a little boy to meet me in 2009 in Dallas County Jail. But there's another reason why I was supposed to meet James Baker. I think we can agree by every metric I am a redeemed man, right? I'm a success story. Every metric there is out there, you think about it, man. College professor, best-selling author, family man, businessman, speaker that goes all over the planet. One of the reasons why he met me in Dallas County Jail and gave me the coffee bean message is so that one day I could come out and redeem him. I was supposed to come out and redeem him. And if I didn't follow that part of the instruction, I think I would have missed a big thing that God had me doing. Because what's the value of changing the memory of a human being to a family? You know?
You can't put a value on it.
You can't.
Like you can't. Like it's priceless.
When I met these sisters, they told me, man, it's hard to believe that our brother's this guy. Our brother was such a screw up. And I'm like, no, he wasn't. He was lost. He made a lot of mistakes, but he impacted one person when he was on this planet. Me, you know? So, but yeah, one of the reasons why he gave me the coffee bean was that so I could come back and redeem him one day. And so I have. The sisters are so proud when they talk about their brother now.
They should be, because think about what's happening now because of his legacy.
They're like, man, our brother's the guy that saved Damon West's life. He's the original coffee bean guy. They tell the story to everybody. It's so good. It's so cool.
Oh my gosh, Damon, I could literally. You're so captivating. Like I could literally talk to you for days, and I am so incredibly grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to come sit down with us and tell your story, because it is one of legacy. Like you're changing generations because of the decisions you're making now. You're changing legacy, like his family, like everything that you're doing. That's why I wanted you on the podcast. That's why I wanted the viewers to see you and hear you, because it is the road less traveled. You had a road you were on. You could have stayed on that road, but you took the road less traveled. 90% go back to prison. You were not that percent. So real quick, we want to do a spitfire real quick. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Jon Gordon gave me the best advice when we wrote the book, The Coffee Bean. He said, Damon, stick with your message. He said, your message is a coffee bean message. He said, it's about to blow up because we're going to write this book. And he said, it's going to take a little while for people to understand the coffee bean message and that you're the coffee bean guy. But if you stay with your message, one day you'll be known as a coffee bean guy. But if you switch messages sometime between now and the next 5 years, you'll confuse everybody. They're like, was he the coffee bean guy or is he this other thing? He said, there's no such thing as an overnight success. It doesn't exist. Hard work, dedication, commitment, consistency, patience. That's the way you're going to get in life. Do not change your message. When you build your brand, Tiffany, stick with your brand.
I love it.
Yeah.
What's the worst advice you've ever received?
Worst advice I've ever received? You're in control, Damon. You got this. And that came out of my own head. Yeah. Back when I was an addict, I got this. I'm in control. I got this. No, I didn't control that. You control what you think, say, feel, and do. That's it.
Oh, I love that. You do control what you think, say, and feel. I love that. Thank you so much for coming on today, Damon, and thank you for sharing your story and the inspiration that you are going to be to millions of people.
Thanks for the opportunity today to speak to your audience, a group of people I would never speak to any other way. So thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.